Hello.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Cameron Sasai, and I serve as the mayor representing the city of Pinole, and thank you for joining us. I now call the regular city council meeting of February 4th, 2025 to order. First item on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. If you're willing and able, please stand for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. We are now on item 2 of the agenda, our land acknowledgement, which I will read aloud. Before we begin, we would like to acknowledge the Ohlone people who are the traditional custodians of this land. We pay our respects to the Ohlone elders, past, present, and future, who call this place Ohlone land, the land that Pinole sits upon their home. We are proud to continue the tradition of coming together and growing as a community. We thank the Ohlone community for their stewardship and support, and we look forward to strengthening our ties and as we continue our relationship of mutual respect and understanding. We're on to item number 3, which is roll call, city clerk's report, and statement of conflict. Deputy City Clerk Stone, good evening. You can proceed.
Good evening. Thank you. Mayor Sasai.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Tave.
Here.
Councilmember Martinez Rubin.
Here.
Note for the record that Councilmember Murphy has not yet arrived. Councilmember Toms.
Here.
City Manager Young.
Here.
City Attorney Casher.
Here.
Mayor and Council, the agenda was posted on Friday, January 31st at 10:30 a.m. with all legally required notices. A correction to the draft resolution for item 12A was distributed to staff, council, posted on the website, and is available for the public in the back of the council chambers. And no written comments were received in advance of the meeting. Does the council have any conflicts to report on our agenda? Seeing none, that concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Moving on to item number 4, there is no closed session. And now to item number 5, and again, we have no closed session for this meeting. Moving down to item number 6, which is citizens to be heard. Madam Deputy City Clerk, do we have any speakers?
Yes, we do have one in person, Raphael Menace.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, staff, and members of the public. My name is Raphael Menace, and I'm a resident of Pinole. And tonight, I stand before you to ask that the City Council exercise its power under Section 54956.5 of the California Government Code to declare a state of emergency in response to Elon Musk's attempted coup to gain control of the U.S. government through taking control of the Treasury Department, through taking control of the systems for the Office of Professional Management, and for attempting to violate the Constitution by destroying congressionally mandated departments without authority of law. This is a power beyond what the city can take on alone, and therefore I'm also asking that the city, in declaring a state of emergency, invoke government sections 8680.9 and 8625 to request the aid of the Governor of State of California, Gavin Newsom, in declaring a state of emergency at the state level to address this issue. The ordinary systems of checks and balances that are supposed to mitigate such a coup are, at the present time, not functioning. The executive branch is defying judicial orders. The legislative branch has decided to abdicate its responsibility to act as a check on the executive. And therefore, I believe that due to the imminent threat of the health and safety of everyone in Pinole, of a rogue agent like Elon Musk taking control of the Treasury of the United States and of the personal information of every person who has entered the federal government's HR systems, that the city of Pinole is currently in a state of emergency, and that the city should pass a resolution to recognize this effect and to call upon the governor of the state of California to assist in that matter, because it is beyond the ability of the city of Pinole to address on its own. And again, I would note one more time that the city does have the power per Government Code Section 54956.0 to declare an emergency, which shall be defined as a work stoppage, crippling activity, or other activity that severely impairs public health, safety, or both, as determined by a majority of the members of the legislative body, and that this declaration of a state of emergency can occur outside of the ordinary Brown Act noticing requirements as an explicit exemption to those requirements. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
We do have one online, Sherry Johnson.
Thank you, Council, Mayor and Council. It's actually Sherry Johansson, and I am speaking in support of Raphael and his concern about declaring an emergency because of the outrageous acts that are happening at the federal level. I am mostly concerned about our lovely, wonderful neighbors who are of so many different cultures and ethnicities. I don't say that very well. It was so wonderful to be at Mayor Sasai's celebration of his swearing in, to know that we are such a culturally diverse city. And from what I have gathered with what's going on in the national level, I think our citizens are in grave danger of having their rights taken away. So thank you very much, and I hope you will consider what Raphael is asking.
Thank you.
There are no more public comments.
Thank you, Deputy City Clerk Stone. Now, to accommodate our presenter for this evening, we will be moving the agenda around slightly, so we will now take up item 8B1, which is a presentation from the Contra Costa County Community Awareness Emergency Response Organization. So I'll pass it to our staff. Mrs. Epps, welcome.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Tonight we have a presentation from the Contra Costa County Community Awareness and Emergency Response Organization. The presentation will be by Tony Semenza and Lori McDonald. Tony is the Executive Director and former Fire Chief of Chevron, and Lori has dedicated 20 years working for CARE as the Executive Assistant. Without further ado, I'll hand it over to them.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Good evening. Yes. Yeah, there's good evening. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to talk to you about CARE. We've been in existence. If you can go to the first slide, please. The next one. Yeah, there it is. The important thing here is that there was an oleum release in 1993, which happened in Richmond, but actually affected parts of Pinole. When that happened, it was then that Dr. Walker, who was the head of health services, came to our group, which was a loosely knit organization, and asked us if we could come up with a solution by building a warning system in the county. Next slide. So in December of 1993, we formed a committee, and we actually put together a 52-page report on what the county needed as far as a warning system for the county. And between 95 and 2000, we raised over $5 million, not a penny, from any of the cities in Contra Costa County. It was all paid for by industry, and started to build a community warning system. Next slide. And again, we started to reorganize because we were loosely knit. We got a board of directors. We are now a nonprofit public benefit corporation, and we've been that way since 1994. In 98, we received the Chemical Educational Foundation Chemical Product Steward Community Award in Washington, D.C. Next slide. And here's what's important to the people of Pinole. We have 7 action groups, and the one I want you to pay attention to is the Community Outreach Emergency Preparedness Team. We provide grants to organizations who are doing emergency preparedness. If you're interested in looking or trying to get one of those grants, you can visit our webpage.
Our webpage at cococaer.org, but it won't, the 2025 application will be up at the end of this week. So
if you go to that webpage and you have an organization in Pinole that needs funding for emergency preparedness training or some project that they may have, you can apply for a grant from CARE. So these are the other 6 organizations. The hazmat team, if you look at the next to last one, the Petrochemical Mutual Aid Group responded recently as Saturday to help in a fire at the Martinez Refining Company. So we have companies that work together to help each other. Next slide. When we built the warning system, we had to come up with the procedures. It was CARE who built the warning system, paid for the warning system, and then in June, we turned it over to the county. So it's now run by Contra Costa County. It happens to sit now in the office of the sheriff. Next slide. I think one of the most important things we do is we host safety summits. This is bringing safety matters experts from industry, agencies, and the community together 3 times a year to talk about best practices, lessons learned, near misses, and any other thing that would be of interest to the members there. These are subject matter experts from the different facilities, agencies, and community members. This is the only organization in the country that brings competitors together to talk about safety and share safety information. Next slide. We have our core objectives at safe industrial facility operations, coordinated emergency response, an effective safety sharing forum, and a trust-based relationship with the community. Next slide. We provide an opportunity for facilities to meet and work together. We work with the community warning system. We work to maintain it and make sure it's used properly. It's an evergreen project. When we gave the warning system to the county, obviously, because of the technology, it needs to be continually upgraded. That upgrade comes from funding from industry to the office of the sheriff so they can continue to provide the best available equipment in this system. Next slide. CARE has created an open dialogue for facilities to work directly with agencies. We have a relationship with the Chemical Safety Board, and this is the only organization in the country that has that kind of relationship with the Chemical Safety Board. Next slide. Our mission statement is to working actively, enhance public health and safety, and creating opportunities for organizations, institutions, agencies, and individuals to connect. Next slide, and the last slide, before you may have any questions, these are some of the highlights major accomplishments that CARE has done. We give out the grants. We have an annual shelter-in-place drill, which your schools participate in. We have the Community Warning System project that we continue to upgrade and improve. And we have these safety summits that we provide 3 times a year, half-a-day session in which the different facilities, different agencies give presentations and share information to try and make facilities as safe as possible. We're happy to answer any questions. I know we're limited on time, but if there's a question or two, we'd be glad to answer them.
Thank you so much for both being here. I'll start to my left with Councilor Thoms for questions.
Yes, thank you for that report. Can I ask how you guys are funded, how the organization is funded?
Absolutely. We're funded. We charge as a nonprofit. We have a membership. The membership is industry, agency, and different cities belong to CARE, and they pay us a dues to belong to the CARE organization. And we use that money to fund those action teams and also for a full-time executive assistant and right now a part-time executive director.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Murphy.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Mr. Semenza. Thank you so much for your presentation. You know, I requested this presentation a while ago, mostly because of our city's commitment to emergency operations. We had a city council retreat this past weekend where one of the items that we are coming to circle back to is just a reignition of our emergency operations plan. One of the things that we are always looking for, of course, is seeking additional revenue and funding. So you talked a lot about grants, so I got to ask, what type of eligibility requirements do you have for grants, and what type of applicants in the past have been what type of funds have you expended and into which applicants in the past?
Lori?
Applicants are anybody from schools to senior centers to cities, to different companies, organizations, not only nonprofits, but wherever there's the need. We've funded for emergency equipment. We've funded for different types of drills. You know, it doesn't have to necessarily be a drill. It could just be like, you need a stockpile of equipment, emergency equipment. I don't have the guidelines in front of me, but I'd be more than happy to email all of you.
Fiona?
Yeah, to Fiona, and she could disperse it to all of you guys. I can actually email you the 2025 application and guidelines, even though it's not up on the website yet, but I can email that to her tomorrow.
And I can tell you that over the past 24 years, we've probably given out over $250,000 worth of funds to different organizations.
Wow, that's incredible. And thank you again for your leadership on this issue. I did notice on your website, it's very informative. While the application guidelines may not be there, you have a number of other items, including city membership. I see some of our cities here in Contra Costa have direct membership with your organization. Can you, including El Cerrito and Pittsburgh and perhaps Martinez, can you explain a little bit? Are you all with us?
Yeah, we are.
Okay.
Yeah.
I hear a lot of, not from you, I think there's just a couple of technology pieces. The question I had was regards to city membership. How are cities becoming members, and what are the benefits of membership to your organization?
Go ahead, Lauren. Tell them membership costs for a city. We charge cities less than $1,000 to be a member. And some of the benefits are, you know, attending those safety summits, having us come in and work with the city or work with different organizations within the city on emergency preparedness. We're there to help the city in any way we can with anything related to emergency preparedness. Train your people on what the warning system is, how it's used, what to do in the event of an emergency, those kind of activities.
Thank you. And just a last question, and thank you, Mayor. The last question I have was in regards to something I found very interesting on your website, which is a mentorship program, apparently, that you all administer. We traditionally see mentorship through education and some of our other community service programs, not so much around emergency operations. Can you give us a little bit of guidance on what your mentorship program encompasses? And yeah, just a little bit more information there. That was pretty exciting to see.
Yeah, we sometimes get people, younger people that are looking for a career in the fire service or looking for some information on emergency preparedness. And we have a program where we invite them in. They can work with us. We can provide some funding if they need funding. It's worked very well where we've had a number of people who have been interested in when they graduate high school or graduate college, want to get into a program like the fire service. So those are the things we've done in the past.
That's phenomenal. Well, thank you. Well, thank you again for your leadership. I want to make sure I'm not interrupting. Mr. Semenza, did you have another comment?
No, that was it.
Okay, thank you. Well, again, thank you for your leadership. If you can get the information over for the grants to our staff, I think our city staff would certainly appreciate it. And if we can't benefit as a city from it, I'm sure we can share that out to members of the public who are interested in working with our city around emergency preparedness. So thank you again.
Yeah, Lori will get that out to your staff.
Thank you. We'll go to Mayor Pro Tem Dave.
Just thank you for the presentation. I know that's a lot of interest in this in the community. I think a lot of the questions, we'll probably get more information when you guys send that stuff over. But I have a feeling that we'll try to find ways to partner in the future. So thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Councilmember Martinez-Rubin.
Thank you. Thank you for the information. Two questions with regard to those grants that you've allotted over the years. What is the range? What's the small end and what's the large end, at least up until now? Up until last year, I imagine. What's the range of the
Well, we
size?
give away grants up to $2,000 if that's what you're asking. So each grant, we can give the amount, the highest amount would be 2,000.
Thank you.
What we do each year is we allot anywhere from $10,000 to $15,000 for grants. And if there's only a few members that apply, those grants can go beyond $2,000, but typically the high range has been 2,000.
Thank you. What's of interest to me is and you may not have these figures, but I'd be interested in knowing, I think it would be helpful for our staff as well to know if there's a particular geographic area, whether it's in Contra Costa County and specifically in Pinole, that hasn't yet accessed or enrolled, registered to be part of that community alert system. Do you know
The warning
coverage?
The warning system.
Yes.
Right now, the warning system is an opt-in system, not an opt-out system. Unfortunately, we recommended an opt-out system where everybody was included and you had to opt out. But right now, the only way you can get that information is to opt in, to register your phone with the community warning system folks so you're on their list. And then if an incident is happening in and around Pinole that affects the community, they'll get information over a text message over their phone.
Yes, I personally have benefited from those alerts. Do you have an idea of what percentage of the community in Pinole, and if not specifically in Pinole, in Contra Costa, has opted into the community awareness system?
Yeah, our friends over at the warning system talk anywhere between 50 to 60% of the people in Contra Costa County that have opted in. We'd like to see a much higher number, but it's difficult to get people to actually opt in. But somewhere between 50 and 60%.
I think are you asking what number of residents in Pinole are registered? Is that what you're asking?
I'm asking both the broader question as to coverage in Contra Costa and more specifically in Pinole. And the reason for the question is to understand the need to do more specific work related to outreach to reach the intended audience for that warning system.
Well, I am meeting with someone from the warning system this week, so I could pose that question. I'm not sure I'm sure they have that information, and I could get back to Fiona with that information.
Thank you, that would be helpful. That's it for me. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And I do not have any questions at this time. I'm looking forward to hearing more information from you all, but I'll bring it to public comment. Deputy City Clerk, do we have any public comments for this item?
No, Mayor, there are no public comments.
Well, thank you very much for your presentation and the work you do, and looking forward to hearing more. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night. While we are on item 8, we will go back to item 8A1, which is proclamations. And we have one city proclamation for tonight, and that is to acknowledge and celebrate Black History Month. So we will go ahead and read this as a council. Black History Month, February 2025. Whereas Black History Month, also known as African American History Month, is an annual celebration and recognition of achievements of Black Americans and a time for acknowledging their important role in U.S. history. And whereas Carter Goodwin Wilson, a Black historian, recognized the accomplishments of Black American citizens, and on February 7, 1926, created one of the cultural landmarks of contemporary America, Negro History Week. And
whereas the second week of February was chosen for the event because it coincided with the birthday of Abraham Lincoln on February 12th and Frederick Douglass on February 14th. In the 1960s, during the height of the Civil Rights Movement, Negro History Week was changed to Black History Week. And whereas, as part of the National Bicentennial celebration, President Gerald Ford officially recognized Black History Month in 1976, calling upon the public to seize the opportunity to honor the too often neglected accomplishments of Black Americans in every area of endeavor throughout our history. And
whereas the theme for Black History Month 2025, African Americans and Labor, focuses on the various and profound ways that work intersects with the collective experiences of Black people. And whereas innumerable Black residents of Pinole have contributed to the advancement of the city, state, and country throughout the city's history, such as the late James Andrew Harris, who was a Pinole resident and groundbreaking nuclear chemist who helped discover two previously unknown elements while working at Lawrence Berkeley National Lab. And
whereas Black leaders representing Pinole have broken many barriers, including Dinah Becton, who was the first Black individual to serve as Contra Costa County District Attorney, Federal Glover, who was the first Black individual to serve on the Contra Costa County Board of Supervisors, and Jamila Smith Folds, who was the first Black individual to represent District 1 on the West Contra Costa Unified School District Board of Trustees. And whereas in the fall of 2003, Michelle Lamons Rayford assumed sponsorship of the Pinole Valley High School African American Student Union as an organization where students are able to better their knowledge of African American history, culture, community, and pride. And whereas in June of 2017, Eric Casher was appointed by the Pinole City Council, becoming the first Black city attorney since the city of Pinole was founded in 1903. And whereas in November 2018, Anthony Tave was elected to serve on the Pinole City Council, becoming the first Black council member since the city's founding. And
whereas in November 2021, Roxanne Stone, who served Pinole as a management analyst since 2018, was promoted to become the first Black deputy city clerk of record. And whereas in December 2022, Devin T. Murphy, him, was appointed by the Pinole City Council, becoming the first Black mayor since the city of Pinole was founded in 1903. And whereas the city of Pinole is proud to honor the contributions of Black residents who have enriched our community through their leadership, service, and cultural contributions.
Now, therefore, I, Cameron Sasai, Mayor of the City of Pinole, County of Contra Costa, State of California, on behalf of the City Council and the entire City of Pinole, do hereby proclaim the month of February 2025 as Black History Month in the City of Pinole and encourage all citizens to observe this month with relevant programs and activities. Happy Black History Month. And for this proclamation, we have a very special guest with us here today to receive the proclamation. And he is actually a relative of one of the leaders who is acknowledged in this city document, and that is Mr. Harris, a resident of Pinole, who is also the son of the late James Andrew Harris. And it is such an immense honor to have him here with us. So we'd love to have you say a few words at the podium if you'd like. Thank you.
Good evening, Council, City of Pinole, and I didn't know. You see, my dad would be thrilled to see this. He was one who was an advocate for diversity, for education, for inclusiveness, bringing everybody together. He would be thrilled. I'm thrilled. It seems like, well, let me just share this. When I moved to Pinole in 1971, it was a majority white city, a couple of Black families here. And when I look today, in 2025, and I see the amount of progress that has occurred here, and naturally, it wasn't a forced thing. It just came as time went I was just telling Ms. Martinez that she asked what I liked about Pinole. And I said, I love Pinole. And she said, what is it? I said, I like how it diversified. Very naturally, it's very obvious, and everybody's getting along. Everybody's working for the same causes and the same things, which is the way it should be, not only here, but everywhere. So I was going to share, since you all know my dad was a nuclear physicist at Lawrence Berkeley Laboratories forever, starting in the early 50s, and he was responsible for co-creation of two of the elements, 104 and 106. But a little bit more about Lawrence Berkeley Laboratories. It's not a regular, normal job. It's a high-level government entity, quasi-government, that does heavy research on all sorts of topics. Now, we would have never known that he's in there working on atoms behind the scene. All I knew is my dad got up and went to work every day and came home every day. He never talked about his job, ever. Whatever he learned there, he took it to the grave. And that's how a whole bunch of people were in the 50s that worked in that industry all around the nation. He went around the nation teaching for a very long time. And after getting out of that particular, the science aspect of it, he became an advocate for diversity in science. And he traveled all over motivating young people of all different races to build their interest in science. And he loved to do that. And he did that happily and joyfully. But what I do want to say, a couple things about my dad in his personal world. When he came home at the end of the day, there was never any discussion whatsoever about what went on at work. He was dad. And to me, I didn't even recognize that he was doing anything of significance or importance. It's just going to work and coming home. It wasn't until later in life that I learned that. And I love that. I love that, how he kept us out of that aspect of what he did. But one thing you should know is that he was one of the funniest people in the whole world. You think Bill Cosby's funny. My dad was funnier than that. When he came home, he was all about the kids and all about our friends and making us laugh. And he's one of the few people who can make me laugh. And I'm pretty funny myself. So one of his favorite things since before I was born was golf. When a golf game came on, he's watching it like so intensely. And I never understood what he liked so much about that. But when Tiger Woods came along, oh my God. He lost his mind. He was just thrilled. But he traveled all over playing golf, him and my mom. My mom started after she retired. And I have to mention her, Helen Harris. My mom's name was Helen Harris. He couldn't have done any of this without her. They met in college, and they were together until the day he passed away in 2000. And she was an instructor at Contra Costa College for over 30 years. And so those two together were a great team. And they belonged to fraternities and sororities. They're alumni. They went to Houston-Tillotson University in Austin, Texas. And till the day my mom died, she was the one and only Bay Area secretary for that school well over 50 years. And they never let go. Every year they would go there several times and participate in things going on at that university and encourage and motivate people. So they were very much into education. So I wanted to share that with you. Oh, by the way, he loved to go camping. He loved RVs. I don't know how many RVs we had over the year. He'd pack us up off to the national parks. We would go. Maureen knows all about that. And so he was a wonderful person. He had friends of all sorts. He was not just a person who hung around science. You would never know. You would never, ever know by looking at my dad what he did. Because he didn't flaunt it. He didn't boast in anything. But he had friends of all walks, from people without college degrees to people with multiple PhDs and things like that. So I was exposed to all kinds of wonderful people growing up, never knowing really what they were doing, but he has lots of friends who were the first in their fields. In fact, that generation was one of the very first ones that crossed those milestones. So as I look here now, really, all these many years later, I guess affirmative action works when you let it, and you let the people who are interested and the people who have the qualifications get the job. You'll see everybody's working together for the same cause. We need more of that, especially now. It's lots of division going on in this nation, where people are pitting each other against one another, and it's unnecessary because we're all in the same boat. When the nation sinks, we sink. So with that being said, I appreciate this beautiful honor to come down and receive this. Oh, one extra thing that you might not know. Now by the way, you can look him up he's all over the internet. If you want to know the details, it's there. But something that I did not see there, that is probably, he's gotten more awards, you guys. He was not forgotten. He was acknowledged at the time and all through the years, even after he stopped doing that. But the best award he got was being inducted into the Smithsonian. Not too many people get to go there, which tells me that there's powers that be. And this is maybe 4 years back. And he didn't get to see that, and my mom didn't get to see that, but we got to see that. And I'll tell you what, that means that there are people within this government who are recognizing and acknowledging the work of African Americans and everyone else, but we haven't been left out. There was one blog that's there, if you go onto the internet and you'll see, and they say, whatever happened to Dr. Harris? Why did he leave? He was like the third in charge or second in charge of LBL for a minute, for like the last 10 years of his job there. And they were speculating. And when I listened to it, it's quite interesting. I giggled. I said, oh, they got it all wrong. He wasn't asked to leave. He didn't get fired. He had it timed. The year I graduated college, and my sister graduated college, he says, I'm retiring. We didn't know it was that fast. Boom, we graduated in June. He retired in July. And they said, well, what did he do? Well, I'll tell you what he did. He swung that golf club every 3 times a week at some golf course around here. He played golf. He traveled. He went everywhere. He had a great time. And he deserved it. And one of his, the head of Lawrence Berkeley Laboratory, what's his name? I can't remember his name. But he left a message for my dad. To my favorite golf partner. Oh, really? Oh, by the way, I was told he also did things, you guys, that we don't know half of what he did. We'll never know. It's not public knowledge. But I ran into one of his colleagues at a memorial, and I will not mention his name. I believe he's retired now, but I won't mention his name. And he comes up to me and he goes, your dad was James Harris? I go, yes. From LBL? I go, yeah. We loved your dad. All of them are just going and going and going and telling how my dad had influenced them to get into science and this and this and this and this and this. And he said this to me, which was a shocker. He says, you know your dad invented the tracking system for the intercontinental ballistic missile. I said, no, I did not. Apparently he was working, and that would explain his relationship with Rockwell International. They sent them this beautiful space shuttle replica, invited them down there for a meeting, and I guess that's why, because he had a relationship with them. And I will share this. One of his best friends, Dr. James Evans, Lawrence Livermore Laboratories. I was at a birthday party at his house. This is after my dad passed. And I had no idea who was in the room. But when they found out who I was again, I got swarmed by all of these men and women who felt it was their duty to tell me what my dad had done for them. And Jim Evans was one of the few people who was at every single atomic blast. If you want to know about atomic energy, and bombs. He's the one. He's seen them all. And I said, really? He would fly every day out from Livermore, had his own team, and go fly down through the desert and go to all the plateaus. So the reason I say this is because I asked him. I tried to get some info. I said, have you ever been to Area 51? And he stops and he thinks, I don't know how long he was in that business, 40, 50 years. He goes, no, I've never been to that plateau, but I've been to all the others. So you guys, and he's African American. So if you want more information for Black History Month, I encourage everyone to go to Who's Who in Black America. And it's about this thick, and it's every conceivable possible discipline you can imagine. People who we wouldn't know, you know, if you're not a friend of them or this, or they don't make prime time, you don't know of them, but we've been contributing to this nation from day one. So I appreciate February, African American History Month, because it allows people to stop for just a moment and look, let me see who did what and who did what. Right in this room, we have history makers right here, 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and 5, and 6, 7, 8, 9. I'm not leaving out non-Black people. I'm just letting everybody know that no, we're present, and we contribute just like everyone else, lots, and dedicate our lives and our energy to making the world a better place. So I thank you guys for allowing me to get up and say this, and keep on doing the fine job that you've been doing. It's nice to see everyone this year. Happy New Year to you. God keep us all in his divine grace, because we've got all sorts of crazy things going on in this world where we need to just be extra careful. So thank you very much. I appreciate it very much. And you guys have a wonderful evening. Oh, thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. We have a great proclamation here to give to you. Would you mind joining us at the very front of the dais for a photo? Thank you again for being here, and once again, happy Black History Month. So we will now go back to, well, first off, do we have any public comments on the item, Deputy City Clerk?
No public comments.
Thank you very much. Go back to item number 7, which is reports and communications. And item 7A is the mayor's report. So I hope everybody had a great January and good start to this month. But to kick us off, of course, want to wish everybody a happy Lunar New Year, and of course, a happy Black History Month. And so happy that we're celebrating that this evening. And I'll start off with my own committee reports. So I attended my first West County Mayors and Supervisors Association meeting, and this is a convening of mayors from Pinole, Hercules, San Pablo, Richmond, El Cerrito, and also our county supervisors, the offices of John Joya and Chanel Skills, Preston. At the meeting, we had discussed a presentation on the county-wide transportation plan update from CCTA, and lots of great discussion on the plan, and particularly the overall guidance that the agency provides when it comes to complete streets, green streets, and road diets. And so if anyone is interested in learning more about that presentation, I'm happy to forward you a copy if you email me. Also attended the WCTAC, or the West Contra Costa Transportation Commission meeting, as our new delegate for Pinole. And we were excited to elect to appoint Rita Xavier of San Pablo City Council as a new representative for CCTA, Claudia Jimenez as the alternate to the board, and she serves on the Richmond City Council. And they also elected me unanimously to serve as chair of WCTAC, as well as Rebecca Saltzman from El Cerrito as vice chair. So I'm looking forward to representing our city in this new capacity and the work we get done for transportation here in Pinole and regionally. I also want to commend City Manager Young and our entire city staff for a great, productive council retreat we had this past Friday and Saturday. And it was a great time to just be together and as a community, as a council and staff, envision what we're going to do in 2025 and beyond. And it was really great, particularly just to see all of our priorities laid out visually and to really dial in on what we can do in 2025 and beyond. So once again, thank you to city staff, all the department heads, executive staff who were there for that retreat, and looking forward to doing that annually. I also wanted to quickly address the fact that the city was made aware this morning that Safeway was provided notice that they were intending to close the store in Pinole, and this is at the APN 80 complex by Terra Hills. This is very new information, so we're currently gathering additional information and are in communication with the property owner, and we will provide an update to all our residents once we get more information. But we're all saddened by this closure, but we're cautiously optimistic that this opens the door to new possibilities. And the owner has indicated that they still plan on having a grocery store at the site. And I know this is a very sensitive topic for some, particularly with the workers who serve at that Safeway. And so we will open up that line of communication with them and those hardworking folks, point them to the right direction for any resources that we can point them to. I also wanted to remind folks that we have some amazing grocery stores here in Pinole. And if you drive and take a right to Fitzgerald Avenue, you'll see stores like Lucky's, you'll see stores like Grocery Outlet, Food Max. You go to Pinole Valley, we have Sprouts and Trader Joe's, and and last but not least, our great small businesses like the Valley Produce Market on San Pablo Avenue. So there are a variety of options here in Pinole. We have been doing some amazing work. Staff has been doing amazing work with retaining existing businesses and attracting new ones to our city. We have a lot that we welcomed in the past few years and more to come this year. And also we, in 2022, adopted our economic development strategy, focusing on business retention, attraction, job creation, and revitalization of key districts, including downtown, the waterfront, and all things that we had mentioned in our council retreat this past weekend. So we will ensure to keep you all updated on the progress as more information comes about, but feel free to reach out to me, council, and staff for any questions. Lastly, I want to update you all and invite you to the Pinole Valley Park Soccer Field grand reopening on February 22nd from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. and it will be a very exciting moment for our community to see the rehabilitation that was done and also hopefully have our entire council and staff be there to celebrate the moment as well. So that concludes my mayor's report. And I will bring it to item 7B, which is mayoral and council appointments when we have none. So we'll go to item 7C, which is city council committee reports and communications. We'll start with Councilor Martinez-Rubin.
Thank you. January 23rd, I attended the Cal Cities Policy Committee Revenue and Taxation Committee meeting. And I will just, hold on, I was still processing the news about the Safeway. And I have for you all just some of the takeaways from that meeting. Avenue, which is a firm that runs analytics and assists cities with revenue generation, made a presentation, and that's what I'm going to look for to read to you. Some of the takeaways from their presentation: they foresee that inflation and prices will increase more on non-taxable items. Don't expect typical growth in sales revenues. So in the city of Pinole, that is our primary source of revenue. So we ought to take a look and see what we might anticipate could be less in the next year or so. AI, or artificial intelligence, robotics, and autonomous vehicles, if you fail to plan as a city, you are planning to fail. So that definitely has to be some consideration on our part as we anticipate
how the availability or accessibility or lack possibly of AI, both training and actual use, might impact our staff as well as residents in Pinole. And with regard to natural disasters, again, if you fail to plan, you're planning to fail. And we're often reminded of how close natural disasters can affect our residents, both personal level and as a community. Always important to keep in mind preparation. And then one other question, without an answer at this point, as far as the committee goes, is for us to consider if tax reform is needed. Tax reform is quite complex, and there are a number of different areas within the tax code in the state of California that could be addressed, but both a combination of interest on the part of legislators, on the part of cities, and also the timing of that, given the legislative calendar as well as who is in office, affects whether a committee will undertake the discussions and an eventual advisory role to the board of Cal Cities, who in turn finds legislators who might develop policy at the state level that would affect tax reform or not. So that's still a question for the committee. So that's my report. Thank you. And in advance of Valentine's/Friendship Day, happy Valentine's Friendships Day.
That's right. Thank you so much, Councilor Martinez-Rubin. Mayor Pro Tem Tave.
Good evening, everyone. Just want to say, kind of echo the words that the mayor had about the retreat. Feel very great about and productive with the retreat. Just want to thank my colleagues for being just really putting all of the ideas and everything out there. I think we got about 4 walls full of paper, butcher paper and poster paper of ideas and vision for Pinole. So as staff starts to synthesize that, I think we just need to make sure that everybody's patient. We had a lot to process, but just want to say that, you know, roads were definitely at the forefront of everybody's mind here on council, and we'll be working to make sure that stays up at the forefront of everything. So just a quick announcement. I had the Recycle More Wickama meeting last week. It went pretty smoothly and routine, but one of the things that I did want to report out is just a little bit of history. SB 244, the Right to Repair Act, was initiated around July 1st of 2024. So in that effort, Recycle More in Wickama hosts a repair workshop. The next repair workshop will be March 22nd, 2025. It's at 7007 Mosier Lane in El Cerrito. What's happening with those workshops is that you can bring electronic gadgets, appliances, computers, toys, sewing machines, clean fabric items to try to fix them. What's great about this is the tools are made available to families and to residents of West Contra Costa County, and it's at no cost. You're also paired up with coaches. I think we had one recently in the area. I think it was either in Hercules, or I'm not sure if we had one in Pinole, but this event, I mean, when you see something that's laying around at your house, it might be an old stereo, it might be an old, sewing machine or something that nostalgic that you kind of let go of because it broke for whatever reason. You can breathe life back into it. These events have been really successful, and I just want to encourage everybody to stop by if you see something. Don't give up on that item. It still can be salvaged, and given the amount of waste that goes out there every day, anytime you can salvage something, it's always a benefit to the environment. So the city of El Cerrito, Sustainable Contra Costa, and Recycle More are the ones sponsoring this event. So I encourage all of our residents to check it out and see if you can get something repaired. Thanks. That's all, Mayor.
Thank you. We'll move to Councilor Murphy.
Thank you, Mayor. Definitely wanted to also thank you, City Manager Young, for the wonderful, and staff, of course, for the wonderful participation in this weekend's City Council retreat. We're on the right track, and it feels really good to think about sustainability and resilience, and of course, one of the things that a lot of our residents talk to us about a lot, which is our roads. So Again, thank you to our staff for just your participation. I know it's not easy to join on a Saturday, but because you all are working throughout the week, but it was really both inspiring, enlightening, and just a fresh space to kind of brainstorm and think about some of the issues that are pertinent to residents. And I really appreciated the City Council retreat. So just wanted to thank you all again. And thank you, City Manager Young, for prioritizing that in your first couple of months here. It was really, it was a great investment of our time, and I'm just really proud of it. Thank you. Of course. Wanted to update folks about MCE Clean Energy. As you know, it is our electricity provider for this year. We are focused on our strategic plan. We have now developed a strategic plan for MCE as it relates to energy services. Of course, a critical piece of that include affordability for our residents, as well as seeking more grant funding that could help both our residents and also the administration of MCE continue our work, but continue it as we center, obviously, the rising cost of energy as well as personnel costs. So the fiscal year for MCE runs from April 1st through March 31st. As a member of the executive committee, we just held a meeting on Monday about this year's budget. This is, again, the first start of what will be a long budget cycle in addition to our city council budget. So just wanted to continue to encourage residents who watch our city council meetings. If you watch city council meetings, that's great. We'd love for you to also tap in because MCE has a pretty lofty budget of around $800 million. And it's really important that we get as much engagement as possible. I think one of the critical pieces of this year's additional budget items include our additional volumes that we now, essentially last year we approved the City of Hercules to join MCE, and we're excited to welcome them. They do represent an increase to MCE's load, which is basically our service, and it's about $10 million of an increase. And so as excited as we of course are managing our dollars and thinking about our increased cost of renewables, as well as our power source disclosure changes that are happening through the California Energy Commission. So just wanted to, again, encourage residents to continue to stay involved. MCE also has a website, mcecleanenergy.org, where you can view our board meetings, as well as our subcommittee meetings, including our executive committee, which I serve on, and our technical committee, which I chair. So if folks have questions about that, I'm always happy to sit down for coffee, or also, of course, if you send me an email, get back to you via email. But just wanted to note that. And I am so excited about this month and Black History Month. It was great to celebrate a Pinole resident. Just looking forward to continue celebrating Black History Month. And one of the best events this month is the African American Student Union at Pinole Valley High School's Black History Jubilee. So if you are available, it'll be on February 15th, which is a Saturday. I do know that some of us, some of our city staff and council members have attended in the past. It is open to the public. They do ask that you pay for a ticket. This just helps to continue the African American Student Union's tradition of their event that they hold every year, and also to make sure that our students are kind of growing their programmatic skills. And so if you can, also purchasing a ticket does our students justice. But again, looking forward to that event and all the events this month. And so thank you again, Mayor, and that concludes my report.
Thank you very much. We have Councilor Toms.
Yes, thank you. Good evening. On January 23rd, I also attended a policy committee meeting, and that was for housing, community, and economic development. And under the presentations we had was from the Legislative Analyst's Office, which was a really interesting discussion on how they review bills and budget. They also addressed issues on homelessness, accountability, and construction costs. We had a presentation from GoBiz, the Governor's Office of Business and Economic Development, about the focus of regional investments and how the state and cities can be a better partner. And then we also updated our priorities for the year. And our primary focus this year is on economic development, but we're also watching legislation on housing, which is always important for all the jurisdictions. I also attended the retreat, and I wanted to thank staff for all of the hard work in putting that together, and my colleagues for the discussion on what our priorities are, and hoping that we can really focus and accomplish a lot of good things this year for the community. On Saturday night, I attended the crab feed sponsored by the Rotary Club, which honored our Police Officer of the Year, Amy Eubanks. And I know that there will be additional celebrations of her accomplishments with her Officer of the Year, and I look forward to those. And that's the end of my report.
Thank you very much. We'll go to item 7D, which is council requests for future agenda items. Do we have any requests? Seeing that there are no requests for this meeting, we'll
Mayor,
go to
we do have a public comment on that.
item 7D, correct?
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Raphael Menace.
Good evening again, Mayor, Council, staff, members of the public. Name's Raphael Mess, resident of Pinole. And I'm following up on my earlier comment during Citizens to be Heard. Would the mayor, and I guess through the mayor to the city attorney, be willing to declare a state of emergency either at this meeting or as a future agenda item? I request that the mayor have the city attorney state the necessary grounding that the city would have to declare a state of emergency per state law. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any other public comments for this item, Deputy City Clerk?
No more public comments.
Thank you for the comment, and we'll follow up with you, Mr. Menace, after this meeting. We'll go on to item 7E, which is City Manager's Report. Please go ahead, City Manager Young.
Thank you, and I'll keep mine fairly short. I just wanted to give a quick update. Chief Clavoon will actually be starting on March 3rd. We have a formal start date, so really excited about that. And we will introduce her at council on March 4th, and then we will be scheduling a formal swearing-in ceremony as well. So excited about that. We also have a tentative start date for our Public Works Director and City Engineer of also March 3rd, but that we'll also see how that goes. Just to let everybody know, I will be at the California ICMA City Managers Conference starting tomorrow and through the end of this week. I will still be accessible by email and text. Feel free to reach out to me, and I will be monitoring my emails. But that does mean I will not be available for my office hours this week, but I will be extending my office hours next week from 3 to 5 p.m. so that I can be available for the community. And I also want to, as always, invite any community members who have any questions about anything operational to go ahead and email me or contact the office, and they'll get a hold of me and I'll get back to everyone. I also, with all of this storm, even more so, I want to thank Public Works for everything that they're doing to keep us from flooding, and Public Works and our Community Services Director, Andrea Dwyer, for making sure that all of the trees at Fitzgerald Park were pollarded. I can only imagine the mess we would have had if that work hadn't happened. So it's really nice to have all of that safely taken care of. And then finally, I also want to thank staff for all their hard work, both preparing the retreat and then being there, and then to council for all of your hard work and transparency. Was really wonderful, and look forward to seeing all of that moving forward into budget season. So thank you.
Thank you very much, City Manager. Do we have any public comments on this item?
No public comments.
Thank you. We'll move on to item 7F, City Attorney Report.
Thank you, Mayor. Nothing to report. You guys covered all the updates. Thanks.
Thank you. Since we moved our presentation to earlier in our meeting, we will now go back and proceed. We'll fast forward to item 9, which is the consent calendar. City Clerk, do we have any public comments?
No public comments.
Thank you. Council, do we have any items to be pulled? Seeing that there is none, do we have a motion?
Motion to approve.
I'll second.
Thank you. We have a motion second. Any discussion? Great. Deputy City Clerk Stone, please call the roll.
Okay. Councilmember Toms.
Yes.
Councilmember Murphy.
Yes.
Councilmember Martinez Rubin.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Tave.
Yes.
Mayor Sasai.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. That concludes item 9, consent calendar. We will go on to item 10, public hearings. We have none. So we'll move on to item 11, old business, and we have none. So we will go to item 12, new business, and we do have an item for that. So I'll pass it along to staff.
All right, thank you, Mayor and City Council. So City Clerk Bell asked me to go ahead and take this item for tonight. So this is looking at increasing the City Council training and travel budget. So on January 21st, at the City Council meeting, a request was approved by City Council to bring back this item to consider increasing the City Council training and travel budget. Right now, the travel budget is allocated at $4,250 for each City Council member to attend training and conferences in a fiscal year. The mayor also receives an additional $600 to allow for travel expenses to regional meetings and events. The request is to increase this by $7,750 per council member, up to a total amount of $12,000 per city council member per fiscal year.
Thank you very much for the brief and comprehensive report. And we'll turn over to our council for questions of staff. We'll start with Council Member Thoms.
Yeah, just a question of staff at this point. We did some cuts to staff across the board when we did this current budget, and I'm just wondering if travel expenses and training have been cut across the board with departments, or what that looks like.
So I can give you a rough estimate on that. In working with our finance director, it looks as though just over $35,000 was cut from staff's training budget.
Thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you. Councilor Murphy.
I don't have any questions. I do want to make sure that, I guess I do have a question just on the, so currently our travel and training budgets, to my understanding, are dependent upon the council member. I just want to make sure that in terms of this appropriation, that council members wouldn't be required to go to the National League of Cities. This is just an offering if they would like to use their travel budget on these items. Essentially, I just want to make sure that impact is known. Can you clarify that as staff?
Yes, if this budget wasn't used, it would roll back into the general fund.
Right, but if essentially, what is the budget increase here? Does that require folks to use this budget for those two conferences, or can council members use this on additional expenses, perhaps Cal City's conferences, or many of us serve on policy committees? Can council members use this for those opportunities as well?
The travel budget would be for council travel and training, and that would be open.
Okay, thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much. And I had the same question too, just reading the review and analysis of this, seeing, I think, reference to NLC and Civic World Conferences. So that clarifies the question in terms of council members are not required to use this additional funding for those specific conferences. We'll go to Mayor Pro Tem Dave for questions.
No question.
Thank you. Councilor Martinez-Rubin.
Not questions of the staff, but questions of the council members who offered the motion.
Thank you. And I think we'll get to that during council comments, if that's okay with you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. So we'll go to public comment. Deputy City Clerk Stone, any public comments?
There are no public comments.
Thank you. So then we'll go back to council comments. We'll start with you, Councilor Martinez-Rubin.
Yes. Councilmember Murphy and Mayor Sasai, you offered the motion and seconded the motion to bring this item for discussion. So, since you are both most interested in further enhancing the budget that was allotted to each of us, $4,200 approximately for the calendar year, would you please let us know how travel to additional conferences, whether they are in-state or national conferences, how they support the city of Pinole, how your travel would support the city of Pinole? So that's one question that I have. And if you'd like to jot this down, I have 3 questions for you to answer, please. How will your travel support the city of Pinole? How does the conference content in which you're interested in particular conferences, Civic Well specifically, and the National League of Cities Conference, a congressional conference for which one of you has already registered in particular. How did this content in attending those sessions inform policy development and decision-making on the council? Those are two questions. And I have a third one, which may or may not apply after your responses to those.
You can go ahead and ask the third question now.
Okay. So often, attendance at one of the benefits for attendees at either state, regional, local, national conferences is the networking aspect, the meeting, the forming of relationships, with the presumption that that's going to lead to something that could be used, readily used within, in this case, since we're talking about the fiscal year, I'd be interested in knowing how your attendance at these meetings would readily apply to the planning and or discussions that we've had about the activities and initiatives that are currently need to be completed here in this fiscal year for Pinole residents.
Thank you. Does that conclude your comments?
For now, those three questions.
Thank you very much. And I'll reiterate here, this is council comments, so it will leave it up to all the council members if they do want to respond to any questions of council members. But to keep ourselves organized, we'll go down the line, same way we've been doing for this council meeting, so we'll go with Mayor Pro Tem Tave.
No questions or comments. The only thing I would say is that I think that I can speak to my personal ability to get to Cal Cities. And to Councilmember Martinez's point, I think really the networking, understanding policy, understanding what's happening in other cities. A lot of people wouldn't know unless you were sitting in a council seat. There's nuances to what's going on and what we do. We use Cal Cities to kind of bounce ideas off of people and other council members that might be dealing with specific items. I know for parks, was an issue here in Pinole. I can distinctly remember talking to a couple council members in Fairfield and Sassoon and getting a lot of good feedback on how they're handling parks and making them an attraction. And it's something that you can bring back to your council with those new ideas. I think that it's important for council members to utilize these conferences as a networking opportunity, but also as a learning experience as well. Similar to the city manager going to ICMA, it just enhances our ability to do this work, considering that many of us are working and have our own full-time jobs and family and everything. A lot of times leaning on that network is pretty important. So I would just say that I think that this conversation is about really expanding that network and bringing more information into the city of Pinole, maybe new ways of thinking of something. I know on a national level, it gets a little bit more difficult because different states have different rules and then different counties in those states have different rules. So, but there's also the creativity that comes out of that. So I would say that and encourage my colleagues to really, as we have this discussion, those benefits and kind of get that to maybe some council members that haven't had that experience. But I know for me, it's been pretty critical for my leadership here in this role.
Thank you very much, Mayor Pro Tem Tave. I usually go last, but I'll jump in right now. So, these different committees and these policy institutes and these trainings, for me at least, and just to go off what you said, Mayor Pro Tem Tave, is really the value in bouncing off ideas off of our regional partners. Here in Cal Cities, of course, met a lot of folks who are dealing with the same issues that we were dealing with in the city of Pinole, and folks, especially with who represent cities of similar sizes. That's really an opportunity for me to, and I think a lot of us, to really ask them, what are you doing particularly in your community? And so when we're talking about, so I'll give you an example. I mean, just talking through, the concern we have in small cities, in a lot of cities, when it comes to generating revenue, and a lot of the structural deficit issues that cities have. I can just think of talking with my colleagues from different cities that I've never met before in SoCal who are exploring options for digital billboards, as an example. I know we've went into that in our past before I was in council, but seeing how they've been able to drive that and how much revenue they've been able to get from that particular project has really been an eye-opening experience. But also just the trainings and beyond what is we usually have in Cal Cities NLC. What this budget does allows us to go beyond that and and really get into more of the policy issues that we could learn from. And also executive education, these different trainings that we have or could have with this budget as well, really investing at the council in terms of how can we better ourselves to be the best elected representatives to serve our city. And also beyond this council that we have currently, I'll also say too that this is not just an issue for travel, training, and budget for a current council. It's also to set a precedent and to set the future council for success to a lot of us here in Pinole, and I think in this council, we have different levels of privilege. So if we do look at this through an equity lens, we want to make sure that everybody in this council can go to travel and trainings and have access to that. I've spoken to a number of folks who used to be on council and in councils, where they have limited travel and training budgets, and a lot of them do go out of pocket. And so if we're considering folks who are low income, folks have different, just in different places in life, maybe they're single parents and have to pay for childcare. It is not right that they pay out of pocket, especially for travel and training that will really enrich themselves as public servants and policymakers. And so I'm happy to support this travel training increase. I'll move it to Councilor Murphy for any comments or questions.
Yeah,
comments.
for sure. I'll just say thank you to staff for prioritizing this on the agenda. I have made and requested in the past presentations about the National League of Cities and Civic Well, and staff has produced those during those presentations. If we look back, there are a number of services and benefits that those staff members from those organizations, including Civic Well, as well as the National League of Cities, they have produced. I would encourage anyone as a council member who has questions about the benefits of these organizations or their conferences to check in there on those presentations. And I would also encourage, I know Councilmember Toms, you have attended the Civic Well Conference as well as I have, but I would encourage every council member to, if you can, I understand we're all working council members, but if you can, take advantage of these opportunities because they really do bring back so much to Pinole. So thank you so much, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilor Toms. Yes, Councilor Toms, sorry, not sure the mic.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. So I voted no to bring this forward last week because or 2 weeks ago, I'm troubled by having this kind of brought in out of sequence without a discussion of the total budget. We have the total budget that we review updates quarterly, and this really needs to be reviewed in the context of the total. It was something that was sort of rushed, and I think I've explained to folks in the past on future agenda items where it kind of diverts staff into doing their regular work and it's so that they have to prepare something new. So I just wanted to put that out there again. My second point was that last year, or this current fiscal year, we got into our reserves. We cut across the board to other departments. That means that their training budget for the professionals that we employ, our employees, do not have the ability to go to the training that they need to actually implement the work that we're directing. I'm really bothered by that not only did we not cut our travel expenses, now we're looking at almost going 3 times. And, I really have trouble with that. In a year where we have a structural deficit, we should not be increasing our expenses at such a time. That's the time where you look at those expenses and you say, okay, well, this budget allows us to go to Cal Cities. It allows us to go to the policy committee meetings. It allows us to go to, the East Bay Cal Cities meetings where there are speakers. That's covered. Most of my Civic Well was covered. I went a little bit out of pocket, but I'm not going to do that every year. And, I recognize that. There are plenty of webinars that Cal Cities has where, they do recaps on all of the policy issues. There's legislative updates that are free. So, you know, I know you mentioned about other future council members. We don't have that issue right now where, you know, somebody has to, you know, arrange for, you know, childcare or other things like that. We don't have that issue right now. What we do have is a fiscal year where we had to get into our reserves, and I think it's reckless of us to increase the budget for ourselves at this time. So that's the end of my comment.
Thank you very much. We'll go down the line once again. Councilor Murphy, do you have any further comments?
No, Mayor, thank you.
Okay, sounds good. I can just jump in really quickly. And so one thing to consider too, I appreciate the mindfulness in terms of the fiscal year where we are and the budget process, all those different things, and also mindfulness of staff and their travel and training budget as well. I will say though that I was trying to register for National League of Cities this year, and unfortunately, the travel and training budget just did not cut it. And unfortunately, I don't have any personal capacity to attend the conference at this point. So I think that's the reason for the increase. But also, and like City Manager Young had explained as well, if council members do not want to use fully use their part of their budget for travel and training, they do not have to. And I think that's same for the council stipend, all those different things. So that would go back to general fund. I think that's correct, City Manager Young.
That's correct.
Thank you. We'll go to Mayor Pro Tem Tave for any other comments.
Yeah, I just wanted to also ask a couple questions about this fund. It also, it seems to me like this increase would then be able to be shared amongst the council, right? So if for whatever reason I'm not going to a particular conference and my portion or, you know, portion of it would be able to be transferable to people as well, right?
It's not currently set up that way. It would be for 12,000 max per council member.
Okay. And so if someone were to choose not to use that 12,000, goes back to the general fund. And when does that happen? That happens in July?
At the end of June, the end of the fiscal year.
So in theory, somebody could be on council for 4 years, and let's just exaggerate, not ever go to a council and accumulate $48,000 that would then go back into the general fund.
I think this would be something that would be looked at each year going back into the general fund because we are currently pulling out of reserves for certain items.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Yes, thank you for the point, and we'll go to Councilor Martinez-Rubin for final comments.
As much as I loved learning and consider myself a lifelong learner, as much as I love travel and appreciate the gain perspective when I attend conferences, I also love to support something that councils, I think, ought to be keep top of mind, and that is fiscal prudence, stewardship of the public's funds. And I think some of us were on early in our terms when we talked about being fiscally responsible and having the fiscal discipline as a city to use the funds in the best way possible. And that fiscal discipline, I believe, applies to individual council members because we, I believe, also serve as role models in a way to how well the limited funds that we have at the beginning of the year, which aren't just allotted, I love this expression, willy-nilly. There's a whole process that we all go through to get to a budget that we adopt. And so in the beginning of fiscal year 24-25, we adopted a budget out of which each of us was allotted, or there was funds set aside through our overall council budget, for each of us to have up $4,200 for travel and training. Knowing that means to me, as an individual council member, and I would encourage all my fellow council members to think about it in this way, because it is not my money, it is the public's money. It is not your funds, it is the public's funds. That when we are allotted a certain amount of money for travel and training, that we are mindful, responsible, and disciplined enough to recognize that that is what we have to spend in the fiscal year. Yes, we have a mechanism to make budget adjustments, which I believe you're taking advantage of through this process. And good for you for asking, because otherwise you wouldn't get an answer one way or another, correct? I appreciate that of you, because you bring up some things that if not asked, how would you know the answer? So here's my answer with regard to supporting or not supporting this increase in budget. I don't support it, because I think that we ought to keep to the allotment that we have had for the fiscal year. And should we become aware of other conferences or events that are available for us in the same fiscal year, but we don't have the funds, well, we just don't have the funds. Just like staff have not had the availability of funding because we cut that to have a structurally balanced budget in fiscal year 24-25, they also don't have the opportunity to go to training and development, professional development, to apply themselves more readily in the initiatives that we support. If we were to approve this budget increase, simply looking at the projected amount that was allotted for, or the proposed budget amount allotted to council, that would appear in the adopted budget. There were 202,239 the budget amount for the entire council. And out of that, 25,380, which includes the 4,200 for each of us. And now you are asking for additional funding of 38 that staff has estimated to be 38,750. So that 25 and some together with the 38 and some is about 64,130. That would be 32% of the council budget. 32% of the council budget. So let that sink in, because that's a nice little round amount that we also have to think about when planning for the next fiscal year. Because that amount is an amount that could probably be used for activities that are in process, that we know coming out of our retreat still need to be completed. And you're nodding, acknowledging that perhaps I make some sense, and I hope that I do. So I know that you think differently about the availability of the funds, and you also think differently than I do about the benefit of attending these conferences. But I also think that you're smart enough to recognize that what it means to the public when a council is asking for an increase in their budget when there have been cuts in other areas in the same fiscal year just seems to not be just, like there's something about that just doesn't sit right with me. And I think that's so with other people with whom I've spoken as members of the public. Let's see, there's something else. Personally, when I am caught between having to decide whether to attend an event or not, especially if I'm not the one that's paying out of pocket, I have to think then, if I don't have the funds, or if the public's funds aren't available to me, what are the alternatives to obtain that same information? Certainly, it's not going to be the same as networking in person. Certainly, it's not going to be the same level of engagement as talking to colleagues from other cities or other states. But you yourselves have spoken about the advantage of attending regional conferences and in-state conferences. And you're also aware, as you have encouraged us to visit the websites of Civic Well and National League of Cities, that online there is a lot of information that we can absorb to bring back and discuss and actually apply in the absence or without attending any new conferences, especially if you've exhausted your individual allotment, which it sounds to me like you have. And in past year, I know that you have sort of shared the funds amongst each other because one council member perhaps has not used their amount. And that may be the case now for the remaining funds, that $4,200 allotment. I appreciate that that's so, because I think that encourages us to have that sharing, if at all doable. I especially appreciate that we are not, the additional funds would not be set up to do that, because they're drawing from those discretionary funds that we have in the general reserve that really ought to be available for items not that we want, but that we absolutely need. If we think back about the discussions of budget and budget preparation, we often, and Mayor Pro Tem Tave, you've often
Mayor, point of order.
expressed.
Can we ask?
What's the point?
Can we ask Councilmember Martinez-Rubin to address the mayor? I think that there's a lot of you and you guys, and I'm just wondering if you can keep your comments to the mayor, and then if you can.
Gladly.
Thank you.
Yes.
Great, thank you.
And so, if Mayor Sasai, if you'd consider the comments that I've made as they apply not only to your role as mayor, or the desires of your attending this conference, but as well how they reflect overall on the council and the impact of requesting for additional funds for a training budget for council when the training budget for staff has been diminished in the same fiscal year, and the impact of that on staff morale. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and I appreciate your passion on the subject, and I hope that the comments were heard from the council and staff and in public. And so I also want to reiterate one more time again that if members of the council do not want to use this increased part of this budget, that it will go directly back into the general fund. And so with that being said, do you have any other comments, Mayor Pro Tem Tave? Or?
Well, I would just say that I think that you know, when we're having this discussion, and we did have to go through budget cuts to try to get a structural budget, Mr. Mayor, and I understand that this may seem, or a narrative may be put forth, that this is something that's being intentional and the council putting out funds. There is a benefit here, and this also should say something to the fact that this council, at least in my opinion, values training. And the question becomes, like, as we move forward and get into mid-year budget adjustments, that the council should consider reinstating some level of training back with our staff, considering leadership is going to training. So I would just encourage staff to really look at their training budget, what was cut, and to really dive into bringing that back as something that the council should consider. Thanks.
Absolutely, and I want to reiterate too that this is a training budget. This is an opportunity for your elected representatives to learn and to network and to come back better elected representatives for you here in the city of Pinole. Any other comments from council? If there are no other council comments,
Mayor, there is a public comment that
great.
came up after you called for it. He's online. I think it's Mr. Bosbrink.
Wonderful.
Sir, are you able to unmute yourself?
Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Yes, my name's Anthony Bosbrink, longtime resident of Pinole Senior Citizen, that is, taxpayer. Personally, and on behalf of myself and other seniors, we think this this rogue move by the certain city council members, which I guess there were two, if not three of them, that collaborated on this, is at this point in time, with regard to our fiscal budget situation and the state of the economy, which we don't know what we're going to be facing moving forward with the new Trump administration, et cetera, that an increase of 300% up to $39,000 a year is fiscally irresponsible. We have a lot of other projects on the drawing board, or don't even make the drawing board, that we're concerned about, like our streets, or the street light outages. We can't even afford street pole lights anymore. We can't fix the potholes when we're supposed to. We need more traffic calming signs, but no, they spend a bunch of money putting up no parking signs and other things. We can't even afford a dozen recyclable trash bins. Where is this going to stop? I think that I echo both Council Member Martinez Rubin and Maureen Toms 100% in what they have brought up. Do you have any feedback from the city manager? I think maybe, you know, a 50% increase would feel a lot better than a 300% increase. And some of that increase could go to the staffers, the directors, the managers, and their associates for their training and their travel. And how much percentages is going to travel versus training? And are we going to hold you accountable for what you learned?
Sir, you
in the
have 45
training?
seconds.
We need to get some feedback. Hello? And what's the comparable city like Hercules have for training and travel and on their budget?
If that concludes your public comment, thank you very much, Deputy City Clerk Stone. Any other public comments for this item?
There are no more public comments.
Wonderful, thank you. And I think to the public commenter's point, yes, I think costs have gone up, and same goes with travel and training as well. So do we have a motion?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I'll move to approve the item, which is a resolution to increase the city council training and travel budget by 38,750.
Okay, I'll second.
Thank you. And before we go to discussion on the motion, I feel in this council that there's a little bit of a point of disagreement here on this issue. But once again, I want to reiterate: if you do not feel comfortable using the increase in this budget, if it is passed, you're welcome not to use that, and it'll go back to the general fund. And looking forward to having more discussions about this in budget season as well. Any other discussion from council members?
It's in the form of a question.
This type of comments.
Comment, okay, let me
Yes.
try to frame it in the form of a comment. You know, what's a challenge here? Because want and need keeps popping in my mind. So I'm wondering if this, a yes vote reflects a want or a need on the parts of council members who will vote one way or another.
Thank you very much. I know Councilor Toms, you had a comment as well?
No.
Okay, I saw your mic. But sounds good. We have a motion and a second on the floor. Deputy City Clerk Stone, can you please call roll?
Yes. Councilmember Toms?
No.
Councilmember Murphy?
Yes.
Councilmember Martinez Rubin?
No.
Mayor Pro Tem Tave?
Yes.
Mayor Sasai?
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you.
And can I ask if it would be appropriate to have a second motion, sort of on the same topic, and I'll describe it. How other expenses are coming out of the city general fund to pay for council expenses. And an example would be if one of us wants to go to, say, Cal City's meeting, or mayor's conference, or crab feed, or something like that. I would move that all of those incidental items also come out of the budget. And I'll explain the reason why is that since it just comes out of the general fund, I don't think that council members really pay so much attention to actually attending those items, those events. There are plenty of times that I go to the mayor's conference and I see a name tag for somebody who reserved to attend and didn't show up. We had this same thing where the city paid for crab feed, and some folks didn't show up. I've seen it time and time again, and so that would be one way, a small way, that I think we can tighten up what was just voted on.
Thank you for the suggestion. Procedurally, I'll point to City Attorney Casher to see if that fits within the scope of this item.
Mayor Toms, if you wouldn't, I'm sorry, Mayor Toms, Councilmember Toms, if you wouldn't mind just restating the motion, as I understand it, it's really a clarification on kind of the use of the newly allocated funds, or?
Yeah, that the allocated funds include all other items that are paid for such as Cal Cities, Mayor's Conference, grab feeds, other events that council members attend also come out of that fund. I think people would be more mindful about confirming that they're going to attend if it actually comes out of their personal allotment.
Thank you. This is to City Attorney, so if you wanted to answer that.
Thank you for the clarification, Councilmember Thompson. Thank you, Mayor. The item is really for an increase to the travel budget. It is a discussion about the budget more broadly. The language of the resolution talks about the use of the funds for travel and training. If there's an interest in having a clarification further, we could certainly entertain that motion. The council can.
Sounds good. Thank you. And it is still unclear to me, so I'm not sure if Deputy City Clerk Stone, you can repeat the motion, or if Councilmember Toms, you can repeat that as a motion.
That other expenses, including but not limited to Mayor's Conference, Cal Cities events, and dinners, special events, also come for council members, also come out of that fund.
Okay, that is clear. Thank you. Do we have a second? Yes, please go ahead.
Just another point to your motion is out of the individual allotment to
Correct.
the council members.
Correct.
Okay, because the requested increase at this point is not necessarily going to all be used.
That's correct.
Okay, but whether a council member uses 3 additional, 5 additional, any travel or events associated with their representation as a council member of Pinole ought to come out of their individual allotment.
Correct. That's my motion.
A second.
Thank you. Any discussion from council on that motion?
Yeah, I guess what I'm having a hard time with is the crab feed's a good example. That is a benefit to the Pinole Rotary Club and the community at large. I would see the city, whether we all didn't attend, would still pay for a ticket to help support. So I guess my question is that as that comes out, are you just asking for an accounting to come out of that budget in particular?
Right, so that there's more thought in confirming attendance at various events.
So I can understand Cal Cities, I can understand the Mayor's Conference, those type of events being something that is slotted in. But where I have trouble with is the nonprofit.
I actually had several community members comment on empty seats.
I would say as a person that attended the event, I understand the optics, but the event was really to support the Rotary Club and honor the officers. And if a council member, for whatever reason, was not able to attend, are you suggesting that we're trying to account for those in order to?
I'm suggesting that, since the budget was just increased, my ticket to that event can
Just
come out of
account
my
for-
allotment.
Okay.
And same with everyone else, because I think you'd be more mindful of reserving an event if it comes out of your allotment.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I would just say that the accounting, I understand. I just think that what I don't want the council to get into is a name and shame, type of environment. And I just think that the reason for that accounting, I understand, is to try to get an understanding how to budget
Point
for
taken.
next year.
Right.
Also that this number may go down. It's or if we start to make that accounting. And just to the city manager, can I ask, how are those events paid for currently? Like, is it just a city expense that's written out, or is it something that comes out of the council fund or travel fund?
So those events are currently coming out of the general fund, and so that is impacting the general fund.
Is there a line item for events or community?
There are a few line items for events.
So that would be just moving instead of that coming out of those events and maybe possibly like you're saying impact those events, it would just be coming out of the additional funds that we just allocated.
If this motion moved
Okay.
forward.
So it's more of an accounting exercise than anything. Is that a fair statement?
I would say it is a fair statement. However, where this is a particular set amount having to do with the council budget, it would be viewed from that perspective as opposed to from some of the other event spaces. If that makes sense.
Okay.
Thank you,
All
Mayor.
right, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. We'll go down the line to the left. Councilor Murphy, any comments on the motion?
No, I don't think I'll be supporting the motion. I think the impetus here is really the city council budget is a budget that is based off of the general fund, like many of our department budgets. It's no different than any budget that we've decided upon. I think the reference to perhaps council members, I think what Councilmember Tom's may be alluding to, Mayor, is that there's a reference from absences that sometimes happen, in terms of the association fee or the involvement of our city in certain events or associations. I think part of this is also, we as a council have a responsibility to show up to events. And then for most folks who know, those of us who have been very active at both bringing resources and also, managing the role of a council member, sometimes we are triple, quadruple, single, triple booked. And so I think there's an awareness here that we should, attend as many events as we can in the community. And I think most of us do. When we don't, I know there are usually, excused absences in many ways for folks. And so I just encourage our city to continue doing what we're doing. I think we're doing it right. This is an opportunity again for us to, this item, the original item, of course, in motion is an opportunity for us to continue our work. And so I'm looking forward to making sure we conclude this meeting in the best way possible.
Thank you very much. And Councilor Toms, any
No.
comments? We'll go back down the line. I'm sorry, we'll go to Councilor Martinez-Rubin first before going to Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you. Yeah. Not only would it be an accounting exercise, it's an accountability practice. When it's not a matter of the absence or the presence at a particular meeting, it's the cost associated with the expected presence, and when that cost is incurred, whereas a council member intended to show up but possibly didn't. We can understand emergencies, but there are one too many times when it's not a good practice to register and then not show up. So just wanted to add that because I have seen that as well. As much as we would like to be in all different community events, regional events, et cetera, yes, part of our role is to be out there amongst community members, amongst fellow council members, amongst people who know more than we do, so that we can absorb and learn from their experiences. But at the same time, we have to be strategic about that, recognizing that we do have limitations to the funding that's available. And so if we can practice that, I think we can help our city. Thank you.
Thank you. And finally, Mayor Pro Tem.
I would just say that I think that after the comments, I can see the accountability portion, and I'm wondering if the city staff could really pull. I know that would be difficult, the different events that I guess there's an expectation, like for the Rotary and the crab feed, that all the council would be there, or other events that may or may not be happening. Is there a way to look back at and have kind of an idea of what that would be? And maybe it's just come in a memo form, or just what events would look like, just as we're planning, moving forward throughout the rest of this fiscal year.
It would be a little challenging because staff isn't always at those events and we're not taking attendance and so forth.
Right.
However, we could probably pull together what we have spent,
Right.
and then we could look at what we could do is we could look at what we have spent and what not participating would have cost us.
I see. So nobody's taking attendance at these meetings in the first place.
I wouldn't say that. I would say for the mayor's conference, for example, staff is not always in attendance.
So our staff is not taking attendance on where each council member is.
So we have every council member RSVP, and then the expectation is then that the council member would attend the events. If that is then not occurring and it's not an event that staff is also attending, because it would cost staff as well, so often staff declines to go to certain events if that budget has already been allocated for council members. And so we might not have really awareness of that because we are not attending some of those events.
I see.
If they're in City of Pinole event or certain conferences that we are attending, we're aware of that. But if it's something that we're not attending, there's not really a way for us to watch it. It's really the honor of the council member to make sure that they are, being good stewards of taxpayer dollars by attending.
Understood. Okay. So I see. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And if we have no further discussion, Deputy City Clerk Stone, please call the roll.
Okay. Councilmember Toms?
Yes.
Councilmember Murphy?
No.
Councilmember Martinez Rubin?
Yes?
Mayor Pro Tem Tave?
No.
Mayor Sasai?
No.
Okay. Motion fails.
Thank you. Do we have any other motions on the floor?
Mayor, we do have one more public
comment?
comment. Yep.
Please go ahead. Thank you.
In person, we have Rafael Menace.
Good evening again, Mayor, Council staff, Birds Public. Name is Rafael Mess, resident of Pinole. I would have liked to have made this comment before the vote on the motion occurred, but I do think that in the future, perhaps during the budget cycle, the council should reconsider this idea, because I think it would be worthwhile, rather than just having funds for events just come from the pool of the general fund as a whole, having them be more allocated to particular council members so that it's clearer, I guess, to the council members, just like, okay, if I want to go to this event, then I have this amount left over for training or so on and so forth, rather than just events being sort of a extra budget where I'm like, I can go to this training and this training and this training, and then entirely separately from that, I also have whatever money I want to go to various events, because that's not part of my training budget. That's just part of the general fund that I can draw from, and it's not separately accounted for. So I do think that in the future, as an accountability measure as part of the budget cycle, it might be worth revisiting this resolution, even though it didn't pass at the present time. So just like for the council to consider in the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Deputy City Clerk Stone, do we have any more public comments on this item?
There are no more public comments.
Thank you. That concludes that item. We're going to go actually quickly back to item 7C. I've been made aware that Councilor Murphy has said committee report and communications. Just add on.
I do, and I'm so sorry, Mayor. I know we want to close out the meeting and celebrate Black History Month, but I do want to encourage. I have been contacted by the senior field representative of Office of Congressman John Garamendi, and this Wednesday, February 5th at 6 p.m., Congressman John Garamendi will be having a telephone town hall. Essentially, this is really just addressing some of the work that he's doing to support constituents during this demanding and challenging time. He's inviting every resident of California's 8th Congressional District to participate in it. You can reserve. This is a telephone town hall. Just go to garamendi.house.gov. Again, that's garamendi.house.gov. You can RSVP, and they'll send you the additional information. Again, this is on Wednesday, February 5th at 6 p.m. So I really want to encourage our community to join the town hall and also ask any questions or listen in to any questions that are being answered. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, and I appreciate that. I also got those notifications, but just forgot to add it into my mayor's report, so I appreciate that. We'll move on to item number 13, which is the second Citizens to be Heard. This is available to members of the public who did not speak under the first Citizens to be Heard, and we have 3 minutes per member of the public. Deputy City Clerk Stone, any public comments for this one?
No, there are no public comments.
Thank you very much. That moves us to item number 14, adjournment. And so happy Lunar New Year, happy Black History Month. And I adjourn the meeting to the regular City Council meeting of February 18th in remembrance of Amber Swartz. Thank you. Have a good evening.